Okay, all right. So I'm sure more people will be joining in during the session. We can get started. So welcome everybody to today's workshop on basically helping people manage their job search during layoffs, especially in tech roles. Because I think in this environment, one of the main things that we are realizing, which is not working for a lot of people, is landing a new role, especially when they're transitioning, companies outside their core area of expertise. And what we've been also noticing is that you know it's not just the layoffs that are kind of killing the typical job search process, because of which there are so many candidates in the market, but also people are not being able to land the right kind of role that they are looking for. And this can be because of not being able to find the right roles, not being able to position their candidature properly, not being able to clear interviews, or many other things, right? So there are a lot of different factors that go into a job search today, as opposed to just one factor, which a lot of people used to think about, just a resume refresh and then starting to apply for jobs. And so we'll get into a lot of that during this session today. Before we dive into it, I just want to share a quick round of intro. So for people who don't know, I'm the founder of Pivot, which is a startup that helps people make smooth and successful career transitions. So anytime people are thinking about changing not just their company but their domain or industry or level in the organization, that's where we come in. And we specialize in helping you land your target role. um, the way we do it involves a couple of different solutions, but one of them is to connect you to industry experts working in your target role, so you can get very personalized one-on-one feedback on your job applications and your job search. So that's a bit of background about me. I would now turn it over to Sashidhar. Sashidhar, welcome to today's workshop, and thanks so much for making time for this. Really appreciate it. So if you could just maybe, quickly give us an overview of your career journey so far, and with the focus on what you exactly do today, that would be great. And then we'll also have Shrikant, who I believe has joined as well, do the same.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arjun. Hi, I'm Sashidhar. I'll give a very brief intro. So I have been in software engineering. I started my career as a software engineer almost 20 years ago, and grew into the role as a senior software engineer and technical leader, and then entered into the software engineering management. So since 13 years, I've been at various roles of software engineering management. Right now, I am the director of engineering in Indeed.com. It is a HR technology company that specializes in job search. It's basically a jobs marketplace where we connect job seekers to the employers through our marketplace products. And my current role involves, as a director of engineering, building products, maintaining infrastructure, building infrastructure, scaling the infrastructure, using AI to actually power our solutions, and of course, managing people in these roles. So that's a brief introduction about me. I'm really happy to be here today to see in whatever way we can help all those who are facing challenges during this difficult time. Over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Sashidhar. That was perfect. And Shrikant, welcome again to the session today. And thank you for making time for this. Would be great if you can just share a quick intro background about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Arjun. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shrikant Kejriwal, currently working with Axis Bank, where I lead analytics for Bharat Banking business and corporate banking group. I have around 20 years of industry experience with an MBA from IIM Indore and engineering from HBTI Kanpur. And in the last 20 years of my professional journey, I have gone through my share of ups and downs, and happy to share all the learnings that I've gathered while making different career transitions. I would have worked for 4 or 5 companies in the last 20 years, changed different kinds of roles, different kinds of functions. So yeah, it's been some places it's been a rough ride, some places it's been a very great ride, and how to transition from those rough rides to the better ones. So yeah, happy to share all my learnings.
Great. All right. Thank you both. Thanks for sharing that. So, basically, it seems like we have two heavyweights in the room who have spent over, I would say, in totality, about close to 4 decades in the in the corporate market and primarily within tech jobs, tech roles. Sashidhar is in fact working at Indeed, which, as many of you might know, is one of the leading job portals in the world. So I think between the two of them, they have a lot of experience, especially in regard with transitioning to a new tech-oriented role. So that's what we are going to focus on today. Now, before we start talking about strategies and things that people can do to maximize the chances of landing their new role, what I want to set the context for is the kind of job opportunities that exist in the market today, and the kind of roles companies are hiring for. What are they looking for? So the first thing that that we should be discussing here, Sashidhar and Shrikant, is just the major job market trends that you are seeing from you, where you sit. In the sense, I'm sure you have been applying to roles, but you, in the, let's say, last 5, 10 years, you must have applied for some new roles. But you've also probably been hiring, right? And you have been in a hiring manager's uh, seat to understand what you're looking for when you're making those hiring decisions. So, Sashidhar, just want to get started. What are some of the things that companies are thinking of when they are hiring for, new tech roles, and could be, an engineering role similar to what you have, but could be others roles like, today you have AI/ML as one of the, major areas in tech where hiring is taking place. So, what are some of the trends from a employer perspective which are becoming more and more important to look out for when making hiring decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I have been a hiring manager for last 13 years, and I've seen a lot of trends change. I think tech roles majorly involve software engineering, machine learning engineering, AI experts, right? And we of course have a lot of other roles like site reliability engineering and all those tech. And within tech companies, we actually have a lot of roles that are like product management, UX designers. Right? There are a bunch of roles that don't need coding, but very important for tech companies. For all these roles, I believe there is one common denominator. Having actually interviewed for cross-functional roles, one is all the tech roles actually needs problem solvers. So we actually look for people who can solve a problem given a business challenge, right? We want to solve either through software solutions or any kind of solution. So I think that's one of the most common denominators I have seen, and I continue to look for that. When I hire for either my roles or any roles in my company, right? And I'm sure all other hiring managers would do so. Uh, and other thing, of course, is folks who are able to showcase their skills in a very real life fashion. Like for example, I can take the examples of software engineers. If you want to be an aspiring software engineer, we would want to see your work, right? Which means essentially we would want to see your projects online, right? GitHub is an open space where you can actually put up your projects. That's for software engineers. Same for UX designers, right? If you want to showcase your design work, you put up somewhere where we can access. Uh, you know, I can go on and on about multiple tips, but these are top two things at least I look for. Your ability of being a problem solver, and of course showing your work that you have done in the position that you're aspiring for.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think that's helpful to set the context in terms of some of the key things you're looking for. Shrikant, just want to bring you in on the conversation as well. So, one of the big things that we have been seeing at Pivot is the amount of layoffs that have been happening over the last 2 years, right? And it's something that affected not just people from a certain domain or people who are not necessarily high performers. It's people at all levels, people with different calibers, some high performers as well, people with great credentials from time to time. And obviously tech companies, especially the large tech companies, have been at the forefront of making some of these layoffs. So in your experience, can you maybe talk a little bit about, like, if a person is getting laid off, how should they firstly perceive that layoff? Is it something that is a kind of a ultimatum to them that their performance or something with regarding to their potential did not work out, or is it something that's a external factor which goes beyond that individual's performance and potential, which is leading to this kind of current layoff situation that has been taking place over the last few years?
Hi, Arjun. Arjun, interesting question. Few hypotheses I want to lay down. One is, I believe the kind of companies that you're talking about, the tech companies, or maybe it could be any company. The people who get selected in these companies, they are amongst the top 5 or 10% of the country. They are high performers, they are talented, they are analytical, they are hardworking. That's why they reached those places. Otherwise, they wouldn't. So, in my mind, barring some exceptions here and there, I would believe that everyone is a high potential person, a high performer who is carrying uh, very sound experience and skills, and they are talented. So that is a given. And if anyone assumes that they've been laid off because maybe they are not good, it it has nothing to do with your own skills. I'll share some of the factors which I've experienced myself, or uh, which I have seen with some of my colleagues or peers that I have known. So three factors I'll talk about, generally what I've heard. So the first factor is, many a times there are restructurings which happens in the companies when they are looking for efficiencies. So during the high growth phase, companies hire a lot, and then when the time comes, suddenly the profitability gets questioned, or the shareholders start questioning the profitability of the company. Then they start looking inward, and they start looking at finding efficiencies. Now in finding those efficiencies, they can layer down, they can simplify, they can cut down an entire department which they believe is not adding to the revenue of the company. So some of those factors can get into the decisions to lay off. The second thing which can happen is that you might end up having some freak incidents in the organization which are beyond your control. It's destiny. Sometimes someone doesn't like you, or something or the other can go wrong, or you may not like the culture. So something or that happens, and then the things can happen. And I've faced two such instances in my own journey where I had, like, I was asked to leave from those two respective companies for very freak incidents or for nothing at all. And the third factor could be performance related reason. And for that, there are, I think, companies give enough chances to people where they put them on performance improvement plans. At least the bigger companies, they give 6 months to 1 year before they decide that, okay, someone is not a good performer. So these are the three categories, Arjun, I would say, that which could lead to a layoff.
Got it. That's helpful. So I think it shows that it's not necessarily just your specific performance or potential that can impact your job situation today. A lot of times, it can be something related to either the business that the company is going through. It could also be related to um, you know uh, something not working out, which is not related to your performance or potential, like just a cultural fit, and many other factors which are not in your control necessarily. And that's something that's important to understand, because when something like this happens where you are laid off, I think the very first reaction, at least psychologically, is to start doubting your potential, because most people just assume that there may have been something wrong with them, with their performance, with their camaraderie with their manager or their peers, which caused that kind of a decision from the companies. But if you look at some of the trends that Shrikant you have shared and Sashidhar you have shared, it's not necessarily just that. There are people from IITs, IIMs, and some of the best schools all over the world, and people who have, even if you don't have that pedigree, they've just done extremely well, grown in their careers, but still not been able to retain their job over a period of time in this current economic climate. So I think that's the first thing which we are trying to establish here, that layoffs may not just happen because of you. There are many other reasons. Now let's move on. So the next thing related to what we have been discussing, but in a slightly different genre of the topic, is your skills. So obviously, tech is advancing at one of the most rapid pace in human history today, right? There has been this argument that technologies like AI and all, they have been invented in the past, right? And for example, a lot of people talk about how calculators changed the world at one time, right? Or some other technologies that have been invented over a period of time, like whether it's smartphone, internet, social media, whatever it is, has changed our world significantly, and AI is no different in that regard. But personally, I mean, in my 12 plus years of being in a corporate career, I feel the kind of upheaval that we are seeing in the job market today is very unique, very different from anything else that we have seen before. Where companies who are even doing well and are profitable are actually not necessarily keeping all their employees. They might be doing a lot of layoffs. So that is very different from the past layoffs and economic crises that have happened in our in our job markets. So I think, Sashidhar, my question to you is, what are some of the key skills that employers are looking for today when they are hiring, making hiring decisions for tech talent, especially if you think about, the impact of AI/ML on not just prompt engineers or AI/ML jobs, but any other kind of jobs. What kind of skills are companies typically looking for today?
So I think one is any tech role, like I talked about common denominator being problem solving, but in addition to that, I think one of the other powerful skill is being able to actually explain how you have been useful to the business, like how you as a tech person have solved any business problem in the past using any of the tech solutions you have. So if you're able to articulate how you have done, right? And that is one, I would say one is the communication skills. And second is your ability to actually, if you have in the past in a role learned any new technology or new paradigm itself, right? And showcase that like, hey, for this business problem, I was actually able to learn a new technology on the go and then therefore solve this business problem. And this is how much it impacted my business,
So,
right?
Sheila, can you
That is,
share an example? I think that's a brilliant insight, but can you share an example on that? That would be.
yeah, absolutely. So in my own, uh, there are a few examples from my own career, but they're a bit dated, so I don't want to pick them. They might be, it might not resonate with this audience, but I have done many interviews, and there are a few interviews that have wowed me in that respect, actually. So I can take a couple of examples there. One is an engineer. Sorry, most of my examples are software engineering, so please bear with me. But in a software engineer who has very limited database knowledge was actually required to build a solution that needed them to understand how various databases work. And that was needed because the problem needed that solution. Like it needed that the problem needed uh, the engineer to actually store a lot of data. And they actually, even though that was not their skill, they were actually mainly a front-end engineer. They actually went ahead, learned what various databases are, and then actually did showcased in the interview proper trade-offs. Okay, there are various types of databases, highly scalable databases, relation databases, and they were actually able to showcase that they learned this skill on their job. And that really wowed me. And obviously, I still look back at that hire as one of the best hires we've had. So in general, if you're able to showcase your ability to learn, that's in fact like a meta skill, I would say. In addition to that, there are obvious hard skills for software engineering that you're able to solve difficult design problems, right? We call it as like architecting systems. If you are targeting senior engineering roles, those are the ones. Now in UX design and all, there are other hard skills we really look for. For example, being able to research the problem and actually build personas and build a product overviews. We look these for product management, project management, and UX design roles. And last but not the least is one should start getting familiar with AI tools. If not to build a new AI model, one should know that AI is here to enhance our productivity. So all software engineering roles or any tech role, if one appears as like a AI novice and I don't understand what's happening, that's that's going to be difficult for you to sell yourself. So I would totally encourage anyone to start using AI tools and showcase that in your profile, that here is how I have used AI tools to enhance my productivity, right? It could be like automated coding, automated deployments, or just simply using chat GPT, etc., for enhanced solution searching. But one needs to be very aware of ongoing trends, especially related to AI and chat GPT kind of generative AI solutions that can help our productivity.
Right, right. Okay. That's helpful. And so, Shrikant, would also love to understand your take on this, right? Basically, if again, things were happening the same way they were happening 5 years ago, we won't be seeing the kind of job market that we are seeing today, right? Obviously, the job market is much more favorable to folks who have some of the skills that Sashidhar mentioned, but also the new age, skills in terms of whether it's database management, data engineering, data science, building new ML models. These kind of things are definitely taking more and more precedent in the hiring manager's decisions over some of the other things. But at the same time, because some of these technologies are fairly new, people are still trying to figure out how to actually acquire or strengthen some of these skills. Right? It's not that I would say even majority of our workforce is aware of some of these new age skill requirements that are there from employer perspective. So can you talk about like how should an individual think about acquiring, strengthening these new skills that employers are looking for today? How to identify what those skills are, firstly, that they should be focusing on, and B, once they have identified, how do they figure out the best avenue, the best medium to pick that skill up and to be able to showcase it to their prospective employer, as Sashidhar said. And Shrikant, just before you dive in, can you just keep your camera maybe, yeah, just straight, yeah, it's better now, perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Shrikant.
Yeah. Let me elaborate a bit on the what skills I believe are important, and then talk about how to acquire them. Three skills I'll talk about. One is a bit around soft skills, which is communicating a story. So whatever you are doing, XYZ, you should be able to communicate that very effectively to your stakeholders, to your team members, to your bosses. Point number one. Point number two is hard skills, because I come from the analytics industry, so I'll talk more about the hard skills on this side, but I can also talk a bit on the tech side as well. So when it comes to hard skills, people who are good at certain tools and methodologies. So when it comes to tools, it will be the Python, or I think today's world is more about Python from a data science standpoint. And then you have the data modeling tools, which will be mostly the Amazon cloud or the Microsoft cloud, where you're able to build the data model. So any kind of good experiences on the cloud architecture and the Python from a tool standpoint, and then uh, from a technique standpoint, some of the data science techniques around building models, whether it is deep learning models or the traditional machine learning models, that can be very powerful. The third area is from a skill set perspective, which is very powerful, is uh, the product management side, technology product management, and the mobile app development. So that is another area where I believe the skills are the hard skills are very important. Now coming to the how part of it, everyone will have their own journey of doing it, and the time available and the opportunity available. But two short avenues which are there. First, identify the hot areas that you want to get into. And then if you're already working in a company or if you're already working in a job, try to take up either cross-functional projects or be part of the teams which are already doing the high-tech projects of your interest area. Try to collaborate with them, work on part-time projects, demonstrate your interest and learn. It is called experiential learning. And the second part is around educational learning, wherein undergo some kind of training program on. There are so many platforms these days. Coursera is there. In fact, to be honest, when I myself got into fractal analytics, I had no idea about analytics at that time, and they had hired me because I was working with Sears Corporation, which was a retail company, and Fractal was looking for someone who can talk with their retail clients, because they had data scientists who could do all the data wrangling in the different tools, but they were not able to communicate, or they were not able to understand that domain of retail. So that's where my retail experience helped me get there. But then that doesn't mean that the retail experience will keep me going. So I had to learn analytics, and I used the Coursera platform, machine learning program by Andrew Ng, who is a Stanford prof. So yeah, both the experiential learning and the educational learning you have to use to make it happen. Arjun, I'm not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the questions that we also have from an audience member, Vinayak, here in the chat, and it's a very good question. I think something that you both have touched upon briefly, but it would be good to kind of answer it head on. And especially, I think, Shrikant, you might be the right person for this one, given that it's focused more on data-oriented role. But how can data engineers showcase their skill set in today's job market? And specifically with regard to, let's say, pipeline building, CI/CD, and other aspects related to data engineering. So that is the question. Any thoughts that you can specifically share in that target the showcasing of skills from a data engineering standpoint? That would be helpful.
See, I believe while the data scientist role has been better marketed in the industry, however, data engineering is the real powerful role which is there and extremely valuable. If the data engineering team is not strong, the data scientist will be doing half of data engineering and half of data science. So data engineering skills are very important, and in fact, that is what I'm learning in even in my current role. My boss pushes everybody to have a hang of data engineering, and data engineering team is highly valued here. While the hiring freeze is there in the rest of the tracks, whether it's business analytics or even in data science, still hiring is on. But data engineering is where the hiring is most open, because that is where the skills are not there. Now, when it comes to data engineering, it's not just about pulling data from one source to the other. On data engineering, someone needs to have a very good understanding of the data modeling, how the different table structures should be there, so that they are all sustainable. Reports can be developed, models can be developed, and Here we hear my boss talks about a book called Kimball, a book written by Kimball framework, that they keep talking about. So data modeling is a highly valued skill, especially when the quantity of data is so huge, disparate, and in big companies, you can understand there are tons of technology systems from which the data is flowing in. So building these seamless data pipelines from the source systems and then putting them into a place in a very structured manner so that the reports can be developed on top of it or the models can be developed on top of it is a highly valuable and a complex skill. I value data engineering to be the most valuable skill that someone can have, but only if they can design the things well.
Got it. And so, I mean, in terms of the showcasing, I mean, you would want a person to, like, for example, like if they don't have specific experience in data engineering, they're still learning, or let's say even if they have some, fundamental level experience, because you said, most people focus more on data science or data analytics, right? But data engineering, there are fewer people who are focusing on, at least it's not been marketed as well as the other two roles. So when you're showcasing, would you still advice that they build like a typical, data portfolio that talks about the stepwise process from start to finish of, how they identify data sources, how they clean the data, how they model the data to then ultimately drive, certain insights and results that can be used for the business strategy. Like, how would you showcase that in a portfolio per se?
I may not be able to answer this perfectly. It's a
No
tough
worries.
one
No worries. We can
for
have
data.
Sashidhar also join in the conversation on this one, because Sashidhar, I know you had talked about showcasing work a couple of times in your previous, answers that you were sharing on different questions that I had. And I think, ultimately, portfolios today are a relatively new phenomenon, right? It's not something that we've been told for many, many years and everybody's comfortable producing a great portfolio. That's what our experience has been. Like, we have worked with thousands of people on the job search. And apart from designers, I would say, apart from maybe just designers, nobody really knows how to create a great portfolio. And most people learn as part of the job search journey, how to build a good portfolio. So what are your experiences and learnings with regard to showcasing your experience, showcasing your skill set in a manner that doesn't just showcase that you know this, but that you are really good at it, that you are the person they should be hiring because you have some of the best skills compared to other candidates. What are the best practices in showcasing your skills through a portfolio?
Sure. I can talk about data engineering also a bit. Data engineering, particularly, as Shrikant has mentioned, you are kind of telling a data story there, like how you played around with data and how that eventually created a value. So one needs to learn visually appealing tools, tools that can be able to present these stories in a visually appealing. I can think of tools like Tableau, Power BI, or there could be custom built dashboards that are used. So data engineering is all about like helping data visualization, and it implies, if you are a data engineer, either budding data engineer or has some level of medium to long term experiences, you would have created value within the organization by playing with data. And one just needs to learn about which tools can represent that. And I can think of Tableau, or even like, simply open source tools like there are open versions of Lucid Chart, for example, that can actually help people build data flow diagrams, just to showcase that here is what I've done. Here is, hopefully all that data, all that information is shareable by your company. If yes, that is the best way to showcase that, okay, you know your craft and you're talking about it. And in the question, I also saw uh, terms like pipeline building, CI/CD, and all. This is a lot more closer to software engineering, in a sense that any software engineering team worth your salt have to get your code and data to production, right? And that means you need a pipeline, You need a CI/CD system, and
Mhm.
a job of data engineer and software engineer in collaboration is always to ensure that that pipeline is more efficient. Say, for example, you enter into a company and you have an existing pipeline. Your job is to actually make it more efficient. And when you do that, there is a story to tell. Which part of the pipeline have you enhanced, right? Or even during maintenance, how did you ensure that the costs didn't shoot through the roof? So there is always a story to tell. And this is where the storytelling technique that or the narrative technique that Shrikant said matters. So you need to put some, as a job seeker, you need to put some thought, deliberate thought into like what are the tools that can help express my story in a visually appealing way, right? We say put it in the form of 2 slides or 1 pager, right? So it takes some time, but once you master that, that will be your most powerful, job seeking or selling yourself kind of a tool.
Got it. Got it. That's very helpful. And there are certain other tools and platforms that even we have heard of. Like Kaggle, for example, for if you're looking for specific data sets. Sometimes it's hard to find good data sets to work with. So platforms like Kaggle, and I'm sure Stack Overflow, and some of these other ones that are out there can be very helpful in addition to data specific tools that Sashidhar, you were also talking about Power BI and Tableau, and I think there are a couple of others. Um, so definitely there is a way. If you have the will to build a portfolio, there is a way to do it, right? You just need to perhaps do some research and get the support of the right people who may have done that before in their own journeys. I think those are the two things to really get support on. But after that, I think you will have to also sort of figure things out on the go. So that was helpful. Thanks for sharing that. The next thing that I want to discuss, and then we will also take up a lot of the questions that have been coming up in our chat here. And before we touch upon the next topic, I just wanted to share with our audience that in case you have any queries for Shrikant or Sashidhar today, please feel free to share them in chat. We will be taking all of them up in just a few minutes. And this is the best opportunity to really ask any question you have with regard to whether it's your job search, your resume building, your interview prep or portfolios, anything, because you're getting very personalized feedback. It's not something you just type on Google, which gives the same one size fit all answer to everybody. So do feel free to share your questions here. But just, yeah, going back to our conversation. So, Shrikant, just want to get your thoughts when a person is now starting to, let's say, apply for jobs, looking for a new role, um, at especially like mid-level or slightly mid to senior level, which is where both of you are today in your career. There is definitely this sentiment that there are many more candidates in the job market than there are openings, right? Especially as you rise up in the career ladder, there are fewer and fewer openings at CXO level or SVP level and VP above level. So a lot of people feel demoralized when they start to face rejections. Some of them sometimes even give up on the job search. They decide to face, if there is any negativity in their current role, they just decided to stay with it and face it because there are relatively few opportunities at that level in the market. So how do you kind of counter this sentiment, right, when you are starting to job search and you start to face some initial rejections, or you might not even hear back from companies at all, if especially you're applying on portals? So, what are some of the ways that you have seen work well um, to keep yourself motivated in this job search, and also to make sure that you are utilizing ways which will have a high ROI, meaning your efforts will result in something tangible over a period of time, if not right away? What are some of the things that you've seen from a job search perspective?
Arjun, I'll just talk about my own recent experience because I went through this myself. I have almost 20 years experience, and last year I went through this. I was working for a very short period of time between my city and the Axis. I happened to work for a company, and there things didn't go my way. So I also had the past experience, but over the years, working in different places and learning in areas, I understood that whatever strategies you develop for companies, you have to also develop for yourself. And there is an interesting book, Playing to Win, by ex-PNG CEO and Harvard Dean. There, it's all about where to play and how to win. So that is a strategy that we have to carve out for what we are trying to do, where to play and how to win. When I say where to play, we need to put very clearly that what are the kind of companies that we want to work for, which are the kind of job functions we want to work in, uh, which are the locations that we are open to work at, depending on our situation. If the situation is dire, like if we don't have a job, situation is different, versus when you are already working in a company, maybe it's not that great, but still you are doing something. So depending on your situation, you can answer these three questions around the where to play, and then comes the how to win. Now, how to win is crucial, which will keep you motivated every day, I would say. In my case, if my where to play is Fortune 500 companies in the world, and within India, Nifty 50 companies. If that is my where to play, then the task is simple. I have to figure out how to win. Uh, how to win will have one element of our resume, our capability, our knowledge. That is one part of it. But the very important part is to create opportunities. How to create opportunities? For that, once you have created your list of companies, then you have to reach out like a salesman. If you were into business development role, whether it was a tech solutions role or you were selling cars, you have to be a salesman even for yourself. And to be a salesman will face 100 rejections. It is part and parcel of the sales process. But the important thing is to follow a sales process, which is uh, identifying leads, then nurturing your leads, and then finally converting and maturing the leads. The first part is identifying the leads. When it comes to identifying the leads, you have listed down 50 companies, for example, Nifty 50. Now, in each of those 50 companies, look at your past, maybe go back education, go back to your school where you studied from class 1 to 12, then to your engineering college or to your undergrad college, then to your business school or the postgrad college, then to the past companies that you have worked at. Because the alumni network, at least the alumni feel, is is still a connecting point. So for example, if I studied from an engineering college, HBTI Kanpur, I will look in my target companies, are there people from that college? They would have also spent 20 years now. And in fact, my super seniors or maybe juniors, someone would be working there, either in my target functions or in my or in the talent acquisition teams. And if I can figure them out, then connect them on LinkedIn, or I would already be part of some groups, figure out their phone number, speak with them, talk about your story. So I used to talk, like, I used to spend 15 hours a day in my job search. And in the 15 hours, I would speak with what, I don't know, maybe half an hour with every person, if I say, or 15 minutes. I would speak with at least 20, 30 people in a day. And when we speak, we learn a lot. We share our resume with them, and many a times they will not even do anything with our resume. It will just remain in their WhatsApp or email. But as a part of sales process, always there will be some leads which will move forward. It will go from one email to another, and somewhere it will strike. That is my belief, Arjun, and it has worked with me at least 3 4 times. And every time I have been in a job hunt, at the end of 2 3 months, I have landed with 3 or 4 offers. So it's a very fairly established process, I would say. Uh, last thing I would like to add, just to motivate people, is I read an article which talks about the definition of luck. What is luck? And the author has defined luck as surface area of luck is equal to doing multiply by talking. So you have to put in your efforts and you have to talk about it. If you do both the things, the chances of luck is high. But if you don't do anything, if you only talk, बोल बच्चन जिसको बोलते हैं, chances of getting lucky are low. While if you only keep on doing, but you don't talk about it to the world, then also the chances of luck are lower. So that's all I want to say from my side. It's all, this topic is very close to my heart. I have experienced this multiple times, and I am happy for other people to get motivated by my story.
That was brilliant. I think that framework is also great, the way you kind of compared job search to a typical sales journey, right? I think understanding that rejection is part of the process and not necessarily taking it personally, because that can feel very demotivational. I think that is a critical thing to learn from your story here. And also, how do you get leads in terms of potentially people who might hire you? How do you keep them interested and ultimately convert those leads? As you said, again, something that a salesperson has to do in their job on a day-to-day basis. But I think regardless of what kind of role you are in, you all have to somewhat become a shameless and strategic salesperson when we are thinking about a job search. I think that's a very helpful experiential story that you've shared. Sashidhar, there is a question here that I think you would be really well equipped to answer in terms of AI ML leaders. So Rajiv's question is there any hope for people with 20 plus years experience in middle management roles? And the question obviously has a slightly underwhelming tone to it. Is there any hope? Which means that it's almost feels like there is a lot of competition or there's not enough openings out there for these kind of roles today, especially for senior level people. So I think that's what we were touching upon earlier, right? The higher you climb in the career ladder, the fewer the roles get. That's why you only have one CEO. You don't have multiple CEO. You have few CXOs. You don't have hundreds or thousands of CXOs. So how do people in today's world, when when there are layoffs happening, when companies are reducing hiring activity, reevaluating their business plans, and technology is evolving so quickly, how do AI ML leaders or engineering leaders with 2 decades or more of experience find a new or better role?
Yeah, sure. I think it's obviously a question on everyone's mind, including mine, right? This could happen to anyone. But being more pragmatic, I think I'll still come back to the storytelling and the sales pitch there. Is there any hope? Definitely. I think I think there is hope, because more and more the world is actually looking towards automating everything, right? Especially with AI and ML. So if you are already a AI ML leader, you're actually better placed to walk into many senior tech roles, because they actually need AI ML expertise, if nothing, right? That we want to automate everything using any domain, whether it is banking, healthcare, HR technologies, supply chain, every place we need actually leaders with AI ML experience. If anything, a leader, AI ML leader with 20 plus years experience is actually like gold dust for any company. I'm sort of suspecting the question is, maybe if you don't have AI ML experience, but you're in middle management, how would you become a AI ML leader? If that is the question, that's a very different ball game, and that needs upskilling. Actually, something of that sort that I am going through myself as well, in the sense that I am a core software engineer, started as that, but my team now has a data science function as well, data science and machine learning function. So I'm learning on the job and making myself valuable. So the best hope is, in your current role, find opportunities where you can bring in AI and ML if you don't already have that, because that is the way to go ahead. You need to experiment and find opportunities where they can create value. and bring in AI/ML, and that's how you become a AI leader with AI/ML experience yourself. And maybe, if I would have known more details about the specific case, I could answer more specifically. But otherwise, upskilling at when you're 20 plus years experience would also need proper planning. Like, you need to be able to not just upskill and do a Coursera course, but you actually need to be able to put it into practice. Again, same thing, showcasing what you have learned in a either real life project or at least a passion project is very important there.
Got it. Got it. Thank you for that, Sashida. I think that was helpful. I apologize. I think there's some camera issue at my end. I'm not sure if my video is working, so we'll just temporarily ignore that and move on. So I
Sure.
think we have a couple of other questions here in chat, and I think one of them is from Vaibhav. And Vaibhav's question is also similar to what we have been discussing throughout with regard to the current job market and some of the challenges that people are facing. And he talks about how Sashida, you mentioned both tech and non-tech roles are important in IT world today, but in the current job market, to get even a non-tech role like project manager, delivery lead, scrum master, for again somebody at mid to senior level can be perceived as a challenging task. So, Shrikant, I don't know if you're there. I see that you're on mute. But either of you, if you would like to take up this question and help Vaibhav understand better what kind of things could be done to again navigate the job market for people at mid to senior level. I know we have talked about portfolios, we have talked about upskilling, we have talked about identifying the right companies, as Shrikant mentioned, right? Like where to play sort of strategy that Shrikant had mentioned. I think that was brilliant way to understand how to gain clarity on the right roles and companies that you should be targeting. But now let's say, I'm somebody who has done that, who has tried to upskill, who's tried to build a portfolio, who's try to identify which companies might make more sense. And also, the last thing is networking. We have briefly touched upon like how to network. So, how do you do all of these things, and perhaps anything else if you have in terms of, let's say, resume improvement, LinkedIn improvement, interview preparation? There's so many things that go into a job search. So, how does one bring everything together to maximize their chances of landing their target role, right? We don't have to kind of touch upon each and every element of job search, but if you were starting your job search today to land an ambitious role, how would you go about it for a non-tech role, especially like a delivery or scrum master kind of a role at a mid to senior level? Either Shrikant or Sashidhar, happy to hear your feedback on this.
Yeah, happy to speak, Arjun. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, See, while we identified the companies, let me talk about few things now. One is, so we are talking about how to win. Now, in the how to win, first thing is your resume. You should be, your resume should get shortlisted. Now, how can you ensure that your resume looks powerful? So the resume has to have, should talk about some results or some impact that you have created. And the format in the resume I always recommend anyone is a SAR format: situation, action, and the result. So whatever you are talking about in your resume, your experience, you should talk about impact. Impact could be impact on revenue, impact could be on cost reduction, for whatever you did, whether it was data engineering or data science or technology solution or leading a team. You were doing some project, you were leading, and it would have led to some impact around efficiency, cost, revenue, on those terms. So everything in your resume should look consultative. And Arjun, you can speak so much on consulting. You have yourself been a management consultant. So the resume should look consultative. It should talk about the impact that you've created, what was the situation, what was your role, etc. at all the multiple bullet points which are there. Uh, However, what I see is many a times the resume don't talk about any impact. They just talk about, okay, I was responsible for this, or this was my role. So that is incomplete in my mind. The second area in the how to win to get an interview call is, while the networking part is awesome and that is what will actually land up a chance for an interview. However, the MNCs, especially the big MNCs, which I have observed, companies like JP Morgan or Unilever, they have all the roles published on their websites. So the one actionable insight which I want to share with all of you is, when you go to those websites, you will be able to find those roles which are open, and whichever ones you believe are closely aligned to your interest area and skill area, you apply to those roles online, submit your resume, fill up their application. But don't stop there. What you have to do is, you have to find someone in that company, and then that someone, you have to ask them uh, to refer in the internal system, and then also talk with the hiring manager of that role. Because internally, if supposing you are applying for a role in Wells Fargo, and if you find someone in Wells Fargo, your colleague, friend, some contact, ask them that please talk with the hiring manager of that role and give my resume, and get me a chance for interview. I'm telling you, Arjun, this is, I found, very effective for the MNC roles. Because in MNC, they don't entertain without a job code or something. It's very difficult. Indian companies is all about network. they, they don't publish so much on the portals. But on MNCs, all these Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Unilever, all these companies, even Google, all these companies, they publish online. But you have to
Right.
find someone internally who can give the resume to the hiring manager.
Right. I think the referrals, networking, connections, I think the importance of that cannot be highlighted. And one thing that I want to speak in that regard, because Shrikant, I think you touched upon it when you were sharing your own story. You talked about how you can utilize your own network, perhaps your alumni network, right, from your colleges and those kind of things. I think in addition to that, there are new age platforms like Pivot, which is what we are building, where you can connect with individuals in your target domain, not necessarily just for referrals, but understanding what kind of job search methods would work best for you, and getting that feedback from people like Shrikant yourself and Sashidhar as well. And we have worked with thousands of people, uh, where not every single person will land their target role within a couple of weeks, because there are many factors that go into job search beyond the control of one person or one platform. But I think understanding what employers are looking for in your target domain, and crystallizing your resume very clearly to hit those points that employers are looking for. Also, reaching out to the right people in the right way, sharing your story in an impactful manner, not just describing responsibilities. All of these things can be done when you work with somebody who is on the other side of the table, who has been there, done that in their own job search, and today is in a hiring manager capacity making those decisions. So I think working with right kind of people, getting feedback is very important. What we have seen is sometimes people keep applying to hundreds of roles, not getting any interviews. I've spoken to so many people this week itself who have said, I've applied to 200 plus roles, 300 plus roles, not landed any job yet, not landed even any interviews, but they're continuing with the same methods. And when you continue with the same methods in a silo without any feedback, you're probably not improving your chances very well. So, Sashidhar, one of the things that I wanted to understand from you very quickly here, and then we'll wrap this up because we are coming up on our time, is if I am, let's say, not having the right network, if I'm not being able to connect with the right people today who work in my target role, target industry, what's the best way to reach out to the company, to reach out to hiring managers or recruiters, to be able to get that initial inroad into that company. As Shrikant mentioned, right? A lot of the MNCs and even in Indian companies, referrals always work, networking always works, but we may not have that. So how do we create that opportunity if we don't have the right network?
Yeah, I think it's one obvious way was actually to find someone on LinkedIn, even though uh, they may know, or this is what we call as, like, in the sales parlance, cold calling. uh, and in so I have seen many aspiring job seekers actually just add asking me to add asking them to be added to my network. And I appreciate that, because they just, so there is one such thing, because you don't know how to crack it, so you actually do that. The other one is, I actually, when you brought up the platforms like Pivot, I really appreciate that method, because then you are able to actually connect to someone who is in the industry. Say someone connects with me or Shrikant, right? They are not only getting access to us, but potentially more connections through us, right? They can get introduced us, we can introduce them to other members. So it's a bit of a difficult situation where cold calling or cold reach outs is your only solution. But then the platforms like Pivot or uh, any other mentoring platform can actually help you find your foot in the door first. Like, okay, I want to be in tech, or I want to be in another place, and I just like have no idea how to do it. These are platforms that can at least help you get your foot in the door. So I can see
Hmm.
that as a great starting.
Perfect. And just one last question we have here is from Payal, and I think it's a very pertinent question in today's job market. We've heard this from many folks who we are working with. Is when you're applying to jobs, it's an employer's market, not an employee's market. So employers have the bargaining power, right? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when it was an employee's market, we saw a very high increase in compensation for tech talent. Sometimes people were aiming for 50%, 70% hikes from their roles, right? Almost on an average. Today, tables have turned. Companies are in the negotiating position to not make very generous offers. And sometimes you get an offer even below what you currently make, just because they know they can hire people at that level. So, should you be accepting an offer which is relatively lower or at the same level as your current salary, if especially if you have good experience in that role? Or would you suggest that you kind of wait it out in your job search, see if something better comes up? How should one think about that, compensation related dilemmas that they might face because of a low offer from companies? Again, Sashida, I feel like Shrikant may have dropped off just because it's posted. So would love to understand your take on this, and then we can, I think, wrap it up.
Sure. That's actually a very difficult proposition, and I've seen many people go through this. So one is research. Actually, if your current position, according to the market, the salary itself has swung downwards, for example, that research is important. So and why is that research important is you need to figure out if the prospective employer is lowballing you as a salary, or really the market actually has seen lowing trends in your particular role. And that's a signal that, okay, now if that is the case, then one has no options but to accept it. But I think that's a suboptimal solution for anyone, right? Like, you have been at a better salary and you wouldn't want to do that. So at that point in time, of course, you can still look at companies that value that role equally, right? People, I think someone has taken the examples of Scrum Masters. Maybe Scrum Masters role is being automated, right? But there are still some companies that value, because for them, Scrum and Agile methodologies has worked like a dream and they want it. But those roles are few and far in between. Anyway, to summarize my answer, I think one is research. Please do research that if the role is really then trending low in terms of salary, then you have got the difficult decision to make. Either you continue doing that role, or you actually then decide to switch to a role that pays to what you would desire, right? At least equal to or greater than your current salary. But accepting a current role just because an employer has lowballed you is definitely not the first option for any of us. I think we should definitely do our research and tap into the network to see are there better roles that are suited for me. Is it time for me to switch the role? Is an important consideration at that point.
Thank you so
Arjun,
much,
again, we are not able to hear
Sashidhar.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes,
So
now.
I think that was very helpful. I think it depends. The answer to that question is it depends, what kind of situation you are in, and you have to assess it accordingly. Sometimes it might be a good decision to, accept that offer if you feel that the market has changed drastically for your roles. And, most of the people are taking pay cuts or are, not really getting very generous offers. And then sometimes it might not be the best thing for you to do. Wait it out, see if you get something better. So very, very helpful, Sashidhar. And I know Shrikant is not here anymore, but I think all of the insights and stories you've shared have made for an insightful session today. We are getting some good feedback also in the comments here. So thank you so, so much for everybody who could join in. It is tough out there. I want to let everybody know. People might think it's just happening with them. It's happening with a large majority of job seekers today, that they're either facing rejections or not hearing back from companies. But you have to assess what exactly is not working. You can't keep applying the same approach that you have been and expecting different results. You have to stay consistent, but you have to take some of these insights you have learned today, and I'm sure you may have learned from other sources as well, and keep experimenting, keep trying new things, and don't just depend on portals like LinkedIn and Naukri to land your job. They are helpful, but you have to apply directly on company websites. You have to do the networking and referrals beyond just applying to these portals. So I hope that was helpful, and thank you once again for joining us on a Thursday evening. We have shared the links for Sashidhar and Shrikant's profiles in the chat in case you would like to reach out to them. And feel free to also check out Pivot by going to mypivot.work. All right. Great
Yeah.
having you, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Sashidhar, again. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.